Hey everybody! I'm about to play my Combat Fairies short Pier Pressure for you, complete with a commentary. It's been about, according to YouTube, it's been about 10 months since I first dropped this short. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the backstory before we actually press play on it. So Combat Fairies is a comic book. It's a 12-chapter complete story. There is more to come, but they're broken up in almost like seasons and stuff. So Volume 1 has been done for a while. I finished it. The last of it dropped last year, a little bit before this short came out, I think, if I'm remembering the timeline. This short was something I had an idea for midway through making the comic. I thought it'd be really fun to actually animate the Combat Fairies. And my original thing was kind of do like a music video or something like that. Part of the inspiration came from a Russian music video that somebody showed me one time at work. That was, I'm forgetting his name unfortunately, but it's by the director of Hardcore Henry. It was an animated video, just super cool. Wasn't a lot of meat necessarily to the plot, but it was just really fun, and the kind of thing you would share around a lot and everything like that. I thought it'd be really fun to do that. So I had this idea. It took me a while to kind of get all my everything lined up to actually get started on it, because I needed to get a song. And worst case scenario, I would have fallen back on some like royalty free score or something like that off of either the YouTube library or Incompetech or 5 Alarm or whatever. But I was really hoping that it would be an actual like song, and I was thinking like rock or punk or something to that effect. But I didn't have money to pay anybody. It was entirely on my own. So it took a while of me just digging through Bandcamp. I spent a few days at a time just going through there. And I would make a list of ones that seemed like the perfect song for the vibe that I was going for. And I also specifically wanted a female lead vocal, because it's a very female-centric story. Obviously, all the characters are all women. And I thought it'd be weird if I showed like these 5 badass fairy ladies just beating the shit out of monsters and stuff like that, and there was like some dude screaming on the soundtrack the entire time. I thought that would be kind of weird. So so that kind of narrowed things down a little bit more, and so it took a while, and then eventually I guess maybe fate was the thing, because I think if I had settled on some of those earlier ones, I never would have found the Dollyrots. And the Dollyrots with Lewis and Kelly were like the perfect match. And the song I had actually originally picked out was Because I'm Awesome. And turns out that they had done that under a different label. They didn't actually own the distribution rights for it themselves, so they couldn't actually give that to me. But they still replied to my email, which is cool. A lot of people just didn't even reply. And good luck for me that the best one was the one that replied. And they said, well, we can't let you do this, but we love your art and the comic looks cool and everything like that. So if you pick something off of one of these 2 albums that we have complete control over, then you can do that. And pointing me in that direction led me to finding Dance Like a Maniac, which arguably was even better than Because I'm Awesome. So it took a while before everything lined up, but when it did, it lined up really well. So then I started animating it. And it took a long time to animate. I was hoping I would get it done like in a month. I've done much more ambitious projects, but this was so much more action heavy than anything I'd ever done before. Everything's in like constant movement, and the fairies really weren't designed with animation in mind, because they were intended as a comic book. So they have a lot of little added accessories and stuff like that. Kiani in particular has like 10 earrings, so I might spend like an entire day animating this elaborate action scene with Kiani, and then when I was done all the action stuff, I couldn't move on to the next shot yet. I had to spend several more hours just going through and just animating every earring, just jiggling on her big long fairy ears, right? And so everything took a really long time. The whole thing, I think, in the end took about 3-4 months, something like that. Not counting the pre-production stuff, which I was kind of tinkering with as I was finding the music. When it, all things considered, that's still a reasonably short amount of time, I guess, for animation by animation standards. It just wasn't what I had in mind, so it was kind of frustrating. Right now, as you're watching this, unless you're watching this way in the future, which is definitely possible, but I actually have a Kickstarter going for Combat Fairies to get the complete 12-chapter graphic novel version of that first Combat Fairies story in print. And my plan was actually to do that last year, but I wanted to get the short out the door first. And because the short took so long, we were into the fall, and it was getting kind of close to the Christmas season, and it was 2020 and everything that's going on in the world, I thought maybe it wasn't the best time to start asking people for money. I knew the book wouldn't be ready in time for Christmas, so I couldn't even try to spin it as a possible Christmas gift for people to buy for each other and stuff like that. So I thought I better wait. And then life being what life is, here we are in the early fall again, and I'm running it, but a little bit earlier in the fall, so hopefully it runs a little bit better now. And so there'll be a link in the description down below of this video to take you to the Kickstarter, where you can pre-order a copy of the book. It's like 292 pages. It's a big, thick graphic novel. Lots of stuff that went in it, and I'm pretty proud of it. There's like any project, there's stuff I'll do different next time. Definitely learn from it, which is the best way to do any project. You should always learn from what you're doing. But I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty fun comic. And this short, if you haven't watched it yet, by the way, pause this, watch the short on its own, and then come back and watch the commentary, because I'm going to be talking through the whole thing. But the short does give you a pretty good impression of the vibe. The story of the comic itself gets into a lot like weightier stuff, and it has a little bit more to say, whereas the short is just purely just fun action, and that's about it. But there's still that sense of fun that runs through everything, even when they get into those heavier subjects in the comic as well. So I think if you like the short, I'm sure you'll like the comic. And there's other stuff available through the Kickstarter as well. If you want to support, but you can't necessarily afford the whole book, there's some other stuff you can check out too. Or if you got deeper pockets, there's even extra stuff beyond the book that you can look into as well. So, but anyway, that's enough of a overblown intro. Let's watch Combat Fairies in Pier Pressure and see what the hell it is I'm talking about. So it was the Outhouse Cartoons logo, which I redesigned that a few years ago. This intro, I was originally going to get my friend Nikki Jalali do a bunch of effects. She's a compositor and does a lot of After Effects type stuff at Atomic Cartoons, and I was going to get her to do some different effects on the text. But she pointed out to me that it really didn't need it. It really seemed cooler or simpler, and I agree with that. Although she did point out that the water was a little too intense, so I ended up softening the focus a lot more for that. The music before Dance Like a Maniac kicks in is mostly from Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, just royalty-free music, and it works really well for this intro stuff, and it synced up really well. I only had a really vague, basic idea of what this short was going to be. I knew I wanted it to involve the fairies rescuing Karpa, the mermaid, who has a cameo appearance in the comic book, so this is like a prequel to the comic. But I didn't really know much beyond that, and part of the inspiration to ultimately have it set in a warehouse as like a almost like some sort of deal gone wrong. They're like human traffickers but with a mermaid, and part of that inspiration came from the movie Free Fire, which I had seen a few years before, and then something randomly made me think of the movie, and I thought that could actually be a good jumping off point for this short that I've been kind of toying with. And I actually remember I was at my parents' house watching a movie with them when I suddenly had an idea of how these opening shots would play out in this very gritty, kind of almost film noir kind of vibe before you would build up to revealing the mermaid and stuff like that. And so as soon as the movie was over, I was like, Mom, I gotta borrow a pen and pencil or pen and paper or whatever. I sketched out some thumbnails and stuff. The idea, of course, is that maybe you won't initially realize that there's something otherworldly about these characters, right? So the first two guys, the one guy's eyes are kind of black, but otherwise they look kind of normal. The one guy obviously has these big pointy elf ears, but maybe those might go unnoticed in those first few shots because he's kind of far away and stuff. This guy on the right, he's supposed to be kind of half snake person or something like that, but it could almost be like more like a burn victim or something. You don't necessarily know. So it's not until you see the Minotaur that there's like absolutely no question that this is definitely some kind of fantasy thing, right? And then we see the mermaid and it just kind of escalates. And here, of course, the fairies for the first time. I think one of the hardest things to figure out from a storyboarding standpoint was exactly how I wanted to introduce the fairies, because I wanted it to be a big deal. And I played with a lot of ideas in my head. I don't actually know if I ever storyboarded any alternate version than what's here. All the on-screen graphics and comic book panels and stuff, by the way, that was I had that idea from the beginning, and yet when I started storyboarding it, I never included any of it. My brain went out of habit, I guess, to my just general typical cinematic kind of brain set, and I didn't really include any of that. So, but I knew I wanted to do it. So when I actually started animating it, I kind of improvised a lot of those panels as I went. The one thing I decided early on was I'm going to make it, a certain dimension, but I'm going to make the actual screen size like narrower, like a wider frame, so that I can have some stuff coming out of the frame, and that'll give me room to overlap some of the panels sometimes and some of the other action and things like that in kind of a cool, interesting way. So even when there's not a panel on it, the way they come out of the frame would have kind of a vibe of sometimes when characters break panel borders in comic books and stuff like that. So hopefully it worked. This shot is one big, long, elaborate kind of single take kind of deal. I knew I wanted to have something like this. I actually rewatched the church scene from Kingsman for inspiration, although I don't think I really took anything from it, but I definitely watched it. The hard part though is this is all 2D space, and I'm not a 3D guy. I have a little bit of 3D training from when I was in school, but it's not something I pursued. So for me to kind of make a 3D model myself would be a pretty big undertaking, because I'd have to kind of reteach myself some things, and I didn't want to ask anybody to do work for me for free or anything like that. So so I just had to make it work with all these 2D elements, and I think it worked out fairly well, but it was there's a lot of cheating in there. Hopefully your attention is elsewhere, so you don't really notice where those cheats happen, but they're definitely there. I wanted to give all the fairies some sort of arc, and I use the term arc very loosely, but the idea is that they all start off really strong. They all kind of have something not so great happen to them, and then they overcome it. So Ayla's probably being the simplest. She gets hit by that brick, she loses her gun, so then she has to like punch them and use her hands and stuff like that. Kiani, of course, can't find her bazooka. She has maybe the biggest arc just because of that, and then she gets crushed into the ground. Cinia loses her sword, has to trick the guy into cutting himself. Brietta gets wrapped in the chain, and then Nora loses her cover and everything like that. So it's not much. It's pretty simple. I don't claim to be reinventing the wheel with any of this writing here, but I thought having some sort of progression of like good, not so good, better kind of thing would add a little bit to it. And I knew I wanted to have some sort of big boss battle. One of the ideas was like, okay, there's 5 fairies. They each need somebody to fight. But if we introduce exactly 5 characters, that seems a little bit much. So I thought, okay, well, what if I introduce 4 characters, or no, 5 characters still, but one of them gets killed off right off the bat, so it seems like there's only 4. But then one of those characters turns out to actually be 2, so we're kind of evening the playing field again. And then that dead guy actually turns out to be a 6th character, which is like their big boss battle kind of thing. And of course, they take this snake thing out pretty fast, which compared to the other guys might seem almost like kind of easy, but they're all working together this time, right? So we're kind of got a teamwork dynamic going. And my thought process too is these fairies are tiny. They're resourceful, they're strong, they know their shit, but they're tiny. So if they're going to take on this giant monster, they're probably going to need to do it fast, because if it came to like any actual like real fisticuffs, they might not really be able to stand up to them. But if they're smart about it and they take them down quick, then maybe they can pull it off. Alex Lara credited there for the sound effects. I kind of ran through the whole thing and did my own passive sound. I don't really trust my own ear for sound design necessarily. I have fun doing it creatively, but I'm not necessarily the best at it. So I ran through it so that Alex would have some sort of jumping off point, kind of to maybe give me some feedback on, but he offered to then kind of step in and actually do the sound for me. And I'm glad he did. He used a lot of what I gave him. I don't think he really changed too much. He kind of just messed with the levels and stuff, but he definitely swapped out some effects for better effects and things like that, and did some of his own things to them. But then he also added a whole bunch more to it and just gave the whole thing a lot more life and a lot more texture and stuff. A lot of the footprints came from him. A lot of the kind of breathy sounds that the characters make during the fighting came from him. The little when the panels pop up was all from him, and there were some other things, still all the whoosh sound effects, and probably a lot of stuff that I didn't even notice. I probably feel it more than I notice it. But anyway, thanks a lot, Alex, and thanks also Kelly and Lewis from the Dollyrots again, because this really wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for you guys. It's a great song. I listen to it regularly, even still. Heard it obviously a lot while I was editing, but even though it was a bit frustrating, it was a very fun short to watch. So I hope you guys liked it. Again, I really hope you watch the short on its own before you watch this commentary, and if you haven't done that yet, maybe bounce back over there so that you can actually see it and hear it properly, especially since the music is so good. And check out the Dollyrots on Bandcamp and all the other things. And check out my Kickstarter. That link is in the description down below. And I hope to do more. And I hope you guys check out the comic, and I hope you like it. Anyway, thank you. Bye.